This is the Death Row and Executions channel. Here is your host, Paco Rivera.
Welcome back to the Death Row and Executions channel. I'm Paco Rivera. You can also follow me on Facebook for updates and more Death Row news. There will be a link to my Facebook in the description below. At about 6:30 p.m. on March the 6th of the year 1998, 68-year-old William Clayton, a delivery driver for Corporate Express Delivery Systems, was sitting in his company delivery van outside the Regions Bank in downtown Center, Alabama. William had completed his deliveries for that day and had stopped at the ATM at Regions Bank to get money so that he can take his wife out to dinner. While William was sitting in his company van, another man, who would later be identified as Keith Edmund Gavin, had stepped out of a vehicle driven by his cousin, a man named Dwayne Meeks, who also happens to be a prison guard with the Department of Corrections in the state of Illinois, where both Meeks and his cousin Keith Gavin live, in Chicago. According to Dwayne Meeks, the cousin, Gavin had asked him to drive to Alabama, where Keith Gavin wanted to find a woman that he had met back in February and was interested in meeting up with her again. The two men left Chicago on March the 5th, 1998. Now, this is the day before William Clayton had stopped at that Regions Bank ATM. Meek's wife and their 3-year-old son had also accompanied them. They checked into a Super 8 motel in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Meeks and his wife and son in one room and Keith Gavin in another room. Later, on the evening of March 6th, Meeks said that his cousin, Gavin, directed him to an area near the Regions Bank in the city of Center, Alabama, and that his cousin suddenly stepped out of the car to approach a van parked near the ATM of that bank. Meeks would say that he thought that his cousin was going to go ask the van driver for directions. But after Gavin arrived at the van, Meeks said that his cousin opened the van door, produced a gun, and immediately fired 2 shots at the driver, who happened to be the delivery driver, William Clayton. Meeks said that he then watched as Gavin got into the van, pushing the driver away from the driver's seat, and then drove off. Meeks had said that soon after seeing Gavin shoot the driver of the van, he decided to flee the scene, and that his cousin Keith Gavin had followed him while driving what is now the carjacked van. Now, this event was also witnessed by the driver of a car that was stopped at a red light near the Regions Bank and the courthouse in downtown Center, Alabama, a man named Larry Twiley. And that witness would later testify as to what he saw and how he later positively identified the shooter as Keith Gavin. The cousin, Dwayne Meeks, said that Keith Gavin was driving that company van behind him and flashing the headlights at him and honking his horn, trying to get him to stop. Meeks said that he refused to stop because he was scared. He didn't know what was going on. So he went back to the Super 8 motel, picked up his wife and son, and drove back to Chicago. Did Meeks, who is basically also a law enforcement officer with the Department of Corrections in Illinois, did he notify authorities in Alabama about the shooting? No. He just drove back to Chicago with his family. Meeks would say that after arriving in Chicago, he realized that his gun, a gun issued to him by the Illinois Department of Corrections, was missing. So he reported the gun as missing to police. Did Meeks tell the authorities about his suspicions that the gun was likely taken by his cousin and then used to shoot a man in Alabama? No. Some time would pass before Meeks finally decided to contact authorities in Alabama and inform them that his cousin shot a man and it was probably his gun that was used. And it appears Meeks decided to make that call because he had learned that his cousin Keith Gavin had been captured and the gun was found. Because Alabama authorities believed that Meeks was also involved in the murder of William Clayton by not reporting the matter immediately, and because he had fled back to Chicago, and because his gun was used, he was charged with capital murder. However, those charges were later dropped. Fortunately, a witness at the scene of the shooting and carjacking did call police. An investigator with the district attorney's office in Cherokee County, Alabama, Danny Smith, while driving toward downtown center, heard over his police scanner a description of the white company van and the suspect, and he spotted them. Danny Smith followed the van at speeds that reached up to 75 miles per hour while he radioed other police patrol units. The investigator said that he had his strobe lights flashing and that the van suddenly came to a stop in the middle of the road near the intersection of highways 68 and 48. Smith then came to a stop behind the van. A man got out of the van and began shooting at him and then ran into the woods. Danny Smith said that after the man had fled, he went to the van to check on the victim. William Clayton was still alive, but barely. Smith then called for medics and Clayton was transferred to a hospital, but he was pronounced dead upon arrival. Police created a perimeter around the woods and a police canine tracked the scent of Keith Gavin to a creek where Gavin was captured and arrested. It is interesting to note that after Gavin was handcuffed, according to police reports, the first words that came out of his mouth were, "I didn't shoot anybody and I don't have a gun." He said this before he was told what he was being arrested for. Investigators did find the murder weapon after searching for several days in the woods. It was found near the creek where Gavin was captured. The gun was also determined as belonging to Keith Gavin's cousin, Dwayne Meeks. It appears from the record that the cousin, Dwayne Meeks, was able to avoid being charged with any involvement in the crime. As a matter of fact, he remained working as a prison guard in Illinois until the year 2006, 8 years after Gavin murdered William Clayton in Alabama. However, it seems that Dwayne Meeks has gotten himself in a whole lot of trouble since then. In various media reports referring to him as former Illinois Corrections Officer Dwayne Meeks, now living in Little Rock, Arkansas, has been hit with federal charges for illegally selling firearms and assault rifles to convicted felons and served some prison time for that. Keith Edmund Gavin had already been convicted of murder in Illinois in the year 1982. He then served about 17 years of a 34-year sentence, serving half the sentence, and had been released on parole only a short time before killing William Clayton in Alabama. At trial in Alabama for the murder of William Clayton, a jury voted 10-2 to sentence Keith Gavin to death. He was also convicted of attempted murder for shooting at investigator Danny Smith. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to find much information on the life of William Clinton Clayton Jr. so that I can provide a tribute to the victim. No obituaries, pictures, or anything. Only that he was a private first-class soldier in the Army during the Korean War. He comes back from a war only to be shot and killed years later while sitting in a van after stopping at an ATM to get money so that he can take his wife out to dinner. Please remember to subscribe for more of these death row and upcoming execution stories. You can also follow me on Facebook for more death row news and updates. There will be a link to my Facebook in the description below. My name is Paco Rivera. Take care and bye for now.